When you get the trackers, you see that alcohol is the worst thing you can do for your stress levels. Get this feeling that I used to have of being tired in the morning, like already before you do something, you're already tired.
Yeah.
Feeling that I hadn't had for years since I was drinking.
It's so interesting, the things that we do for comfort, which are actually counterproductive.
One of the rarest questions I would get in the doctor's office is, what can I do for my own health? I will jump back in my chair if I hear that.
Yeah.
To understand disease, you really need to study for 6 years. But to know what you need to stay healthy, you need to study for 6 days. It's not hard. It's easy.
Welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast.
Welcome, my friends, to another episode of the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast. I am your host, Drew Griesel from Primal Wellness Coaching. Today, I am going to be talking to Dr. Torkil Færø, who is a general practitioner and emergency physician. He's a documentary filmmaker, an author, and a photographer, and he is in Norway. Back in '96, he was one of the first Norwegian medics to work for Doctors Without Borders in then war-torn Angola. And over a 26-year career as a freelance doctor, he has worked with tens of thousands of patients and done consultations, and he's gained a unique picture of the diseases that plague us. And through all of this, he's learned that the cause is most often found in the stresses that our own lifestyles place upon our bodies. And to that end, he wrote The Pulse Cure. This book is a national bestseller in Norway. It's gaining popularity here in the States as well. Easy to pick up. You can find it on Amazon. I will link to it in the show notes, the superhumanblueprintpodcast.com. But it's a good read. It's about 200 pages, so a lot of data, but not overwhelming. And today we're going to talk about how we can use heart rate variability to manage our own stress. Dr. Torkil Færø, welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast.
Thank you, Drew. Great to be here and talking about heart rate variability in wearables. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about a lot of things because I've got your book here, and I mean, you can literally just flip into the very first page, which is your bio, and realize what an interesting person you probably are. So, you know, you've kind of pioneered this field of using wearables to manage your wellness, but then you've done so many things as well. I mean, yeah, you seem like a very interesting person.
I'm not sure if I'm interesting, but I've done interesting things. So I've been trying to, okay, what should you do? Okay, do interesting things. Whether that makes me interesting, I wouldn't be the one to tell either. So.
Sure, yeah. All right, I'll be the judge of that. But yeah, so you're a medical doctor. You are in Norway, and last we chatted, you were working in the emergency room. Is that primarily what you do over there at the moment? Is the ER?
Yeah. Besides being kind of an author and being interviewed here and there, because It's been such a huge bestseller. I do probably this week. I probably have 4 shifts at the ER. I think. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Doing even some night watch. Yeah. So still doing that job, still liking it very much. Yeah.
And you've been a doctor for quite some time. So you're in the decades, correct?
Yeah, 26 years.
26 years.
More than 2.5 decades. So been following one generation, So the ones that were born, when I started out is now grown up and then some. Yeah.
How interesting.
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, because you've done quite a few things, right? You've in 26 years, you've been a general practitioner. You're in the emergency room now. I saw you've done Doctors Without Borders. So you've been all over the place. You've probably worked in some pretty unique conditions. And so now at this point, you're working in emergency response. So just out of curiosity, and we're going to get into wearables and all that, but how did you land there? Because emergency response, I mean, to me, that just seems like very, it seems like such stressful work. And shout out to you and any doctor that works in emergency response.
Yeah, and that's funny because I used to think it was stressful too, but my wearable can tell me that that's the most calming
Mm,
thing I do. So when I'm at the ER, I'm calm. So I know what to do. So it's yeah, I'm not sure exactly why it's I get so calm because, but maybe it's just a reaction that I know that to make the right decisions, I need to be calm, and I've been doing it for 26 years. So it would take something to surprise me, and
okay.
I like that it's that you never know what's going to happen in the next minute. You just know so much that within the next 5 minutes you can see what's on your schedule, and then anything can happen.
Okay.
And I think that calms me down. What would stress me would be to know what I would be doing, for days on end. That would be
Really?
terrifying for me. Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Okay.
I'm not
Okay.
sure if it would be revealed in the heart rate, but at least mentally, that's my biggest fear. Which has been what has been driving me to doing all these interesting things for me all these years. Sailing and traveling and doing photography and
Mm-hmm.
documentary films and trying to put several different lives into one,
Yeah.
just not just living one life, because when we grew up, okay, my father was a teacher, my mother was a teacher. Every father and mother you saw around you had one job that
Right.
they were,
Yep.
and I preferred to have, 10 different careers in a lifetime or so.
Yeah. That's cool because for a lot of people, their job kind of becomes their identity, right? So this way you get to
Yeah.
pick and choose what is your identity of the moment because you have different things that kind of embody who you are and what your passions are.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's also the interesting part, that your identity shifts. Suddenly I've been going a lot from teaching photography on workshops around the world, and
Oh
then going
wow.
straight back to Norway, to do the normal work for 2 weeks in some district. So shifting back and forth from these different positions on how to observe life and what
Mm-hmm.
people do, that has been key, I think, to the books I've been writing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I enjoy a lot of things, but mostly they're just hobbies.
Yeah, the key probably is to get your hobby to become your work, or in some degree anyway. Yeah.
So I have to figure out how I can integrate motorcycles and wellness coaching. So we'll have to figure that one out.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, so wearables. So using wearables to monitor and manage health and wellness. So tell us about. I guess let's just start at the very beginning. So what even led you to wanting to pursue, I guess, this new realm of understanding health?
Yeah, I think we have to wind back to I was into, or still is, but I don't have the time for it. But I was very much into photography,
Mm-hmm.
which is hunting for pictures. And what we learned in medical school about the autonomic nervous system, which is what we are talking about really, was that the autonomic nervous system, the self-governing part of our nervous system, is divided into the parasympathetic rest and digest mode and the sympathetic fight, flight, and freeze mode. But through photography, being alert on the hunting for pictures, I came to realize that we're actually using the sympathetic nervous system here too,
Hmm.
which is activating us.
Okay.
So that's kind of the my way into this. And then after some years, I understood that it's possible to measure the state of our autonomic nervous system through our heart rate, through heart rate variability, the variation between heartbeats.
And how did you come to that? Was that just kind of
I was
happenstance? You were looking at an app and realized that it was changing?
no, I was actually lying in a hammock in
Ah,
Moorea.
beautiful.
It was
Every
off.
story should start that way.
Yeah, I had been sailing with my family from Panama, and then for 17 days across the Pacific, or from Galapagos to French Polynesia. And I was lying in a hammock reading a book called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. It's a huge bestseller. And in this book, I read that there's something called heart rate variability that this is 2019. And I, as a doctor, had never heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was telling me that there's a measurement, a biometric called heart rate variability that can tell you whether you are in the stressed mode or in the de-stressed, relaxed mode. And of course, that triggered my interest. And then I started diving into it, using different wearables like ECG-based wearables, watches, rings, and all of this. And my publisher, because I had made a book called The Camera Cure some years earlier, my publisher asked if this was a book for them because he had never heard of this. You know, I was a really geek, right? Nobody was doing these things.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, let's write a book. And it's the first book in the world, actually, on how to use wearables to track the autonomic nervous system. And it's been just a huge bestseller in Norway. I think I tried to, translate the numbers into US numbers. So if it was as successful in the US, it would have sold 2.5 million copies of the book. So the book is really kind of a household concept in Norway. Everybody knows now that you can use wearables to track your health. It's everywhere. It's in the newspaper. I get notifications whenever my name is in a newspaper, and it is more or less every week because of the pulse cures. It's referred to somewhere in some article.
Very cool.
So it's really changed the way that we see healthcare, because what these wearables really do is to take the power from the doctor and the healthcare system after you get sick, and it takes it into your own hands and can prevent you from getting sick. So it's really a huge shift in the approach to disease and illness and health.
Well, yeah, and I thought this was pretty cool coming from a doctor in particular, but I mean, your opening line of the book, the very first page, just, one little sentence here. Excuse me, where is it? Just after the table of contents. Here we go. The doctor of the future will be oneself. And so that's a quote from another doctor. But I just think opening your book that way is pretty profound. But for our listeners that are unfamiliar with HRV, could you explain what heart rate variability is?
Yes. Heart rate variability is the variation between heartbeats. So our heart does not beat at a very steady metronome-like state, or it does, if you're in the stressed mode. But when you are in the relaxed mode, then when you breathe in, the heart rate goes up a little bit because there's more oxygen in the lungs. And when you breathe out, the heart rate slows down a little bit because there's less oxygen and it saves some energy. Measured in milliseconds, so not much, but it is detectable by these wearables. And if you're in the stressed mode, then your heart rate beats at a very steady pace. It's like our ancient organism interprets it as this organism is in danger. We need to push through even when there's less oxygen in the lungs. We need to survive this moment. We don't know if this organism is alive even the next moment. So we put all other, activity on hold in the immune system and so on.
And so
so these wearables can track your intensity in the moment, and over time, while you're sleeping, while you're busy living your life, it will gather information to tell you if your stress level is sustainable or not.
Upgrade your wellness with the Ringcon Smart Ring, the ultimate all-in-one health tracker that offers comprehensive metrics without the subscription fee. You know what I'm talking about. Track everything from your heart rate and blood oxygen levels to sleep quality and stress index. This ring even monitors your daily steps and workouts, giving you a complete picture of your overall well-being. One of the standout features of the Ringcon Smart Ring for me is its ability to track sleep and movement. It understands your sleep patterns and can help you to optimize your rest, improve recovery, and enhance your overall health. The ring provides detailed insights into your sleep stages, helping you to identify disruptions and make better adjustments for better quality sleep. With improved sleep, as you know, you can then boost your energy levels, cognitive function, and your overall mood. So it is worth tracking your sleep, folks. The Ringcon Smart Ring also excels in tracking your daily movement and workouts. So by monitoring your steps and your activity levels and your exercise routines, it helps you to stay active and to reach your fitness goals. And for those of you that care about this kind of thing, you can actually turn off Bluetooth on the ring, only activating it when you're ready to look at the real-time data in the app on your phone. This way you're not getting hammered with more wireless signals. So don't miss out on optimizing your wellness. Head over to primalwellnesscoaching.com/ringcon. That's RINGCONN, primalwellnesscoaching.com/ringcon, and get your Ringcon smart ring today. No subscription, just pure health power on your finger. Okay. So obviously your heart rate variability can change depending on things that you're controlling, right? I can control my breathing after a fashion. But stress response, so that it also is influenced by hormonal response. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the stress response will have so many enemies, so to speak. It's what we would regard as stress, like mental stress, worries, and anxiety, and just being in a hurried mode.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, most people, to my surprise, and most other people's surprise too, it's often more about food. Certain foods that you cannot tolerate, that stresses you out.
Wow,
And
interesting.
keeps you from sleeping, at the restorative effectively. And it could be alcohol. It could be altitude, being in California. If you go up to the mountains, that will affect it quite severely as well. And heat, cold, breath work, as you say.
Mm-hmm.
So you have all these different levers into the what can affect your autonomic nervous system and stress balance, and many from the surprising angles. So that is why it's so interesting.
Yeah, it's extremely interesting. Okay, so you discovered essentially that you can monitor your own health by using a wearable. So let's get into that. What is the wearable technology that you're using?
I'm using mainly Garmin watches.
Okay.
They are, to me, or the way I use it, the best one, because you can kind of micromanage your stress levels. You can see exactly it was between 3 and 4 in the afternoon that the stress was high. So it must have been due to the glass of wine or the quarrel with my wife or any other circumstance.
Okay.
And so you can identify when it was and the severity of the reaction. So it's so much more easy to do the detective work than with many other wearables that will give you a number in the morning, and you will not really know what affected it the day before.
Right.
But for other people, that may be just what they need or want to know.
Mm-hmm.
They're not interested like me to be such a nerd, going into the details, or that I can do it. I wouldn't do it every day. So some days I rarely check it. Other days I would pay more attention to it. So
Okay.
of course I can choose whether to look at my watch or not. So, and you have the Whoop band that doesn't even have a watch face, that you have to go actively into the app
Mm-hmm.
to check it. So there are so many different ways to examine your nervous system. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you feel like after having, I guess, been monitoring your own data for some time now, do you feel like you have a pretty good foreknowledge of what different things will do to you?
Yeah, I have a pretty good idea what will happen if I do this or that. But it's also a lot of surprises.
Mm-hmm.
So there can be other new foods that I cannot tolerate.
Okay.
Yeah, I would still get surprises, at least on a weekly basis. And it's still a struggle to keep the balance, to make sure that I get enough rest and try to exercise and try to get all my activities without getting too stressed.
Yeah.
Because that would be a problem. Because of course, being a best-selling author is not good for your stress level. That's probably about the worst things you can do. And my life certainly has been turned upside down, the last 2 years, because
Yeah.
I'm originally just a normal doctor listening to one-on-one patient, and
Mm-hmm.
suddenly facing 200 people every other week, and I think I've been on 200 podcasts. It's
Wow.
like some 100 English speaking ones and
Yeah.
100 Norwegian ones. So being in this position is by no way natural to me.
Okay.
But now it gets, get used to it.
I was going to say your stress response would adapt over time, I would imagine.
Absolutely, absolutely, to some extent, but there are some patterns, and that will be there, I think, anyway. But you're able to mitigate the stress somewhat,
Right.
and also, what's interesting is that what we find when we start using the wearables is that we're all individual. We all react on an individual basis to our circumstances. So, because we have a website, a social website with 4,000 members, so I get the insight into so many people's uh, results. Also on Instagram, you get so many people ask me questions, and they have a screenshot of their device, and asking
Yeah.
me what's this. So I also see that it's very individual how we
Okay.
react to things, and this is one of the probably biggest advantages about these devices, because as a doctor, we are used to having the result from a research study of maybe 1,000 or 10,000 participants.
Mm-hmm.
And what we look to is the average
Right.
result from those 10,000. But that may not mean anything to you,
Mm.
because you may be on either side of this average. And so that's what is important, that it shows how you react to a certain thing.
Yeah, and that's what I really like about this is, I mean, you really are giving people a tool to understand their own physiology, rather than saying this is generally what happens when you experience this or this or this. You're saying this is how to use this tool to understand how these things impact you.
Hmm.
Yeah, that it's a nice approach to imparting knowledge, right? You're really just giving someone a tool rather than giving them knowledge. You're teaching them
Hmm.
how to use a tool so that they can understand their own physiology. Um, just out of curiosity, from a technology standpoint, do you understand how the wearables work, like how they measure HRV?
Yeah, they use there's a I think it's called a PPG light, so it will use light, uh, both red and green, one for the heart rate and one for the oxygen. I don't remember which color is which anymore. But it will put the light into your finger if it's a ring, or into your wrist if it's a watch, and it will read the result back to see your heart rate or see the amount of oxygen in your system, and it will then detect the rhythm of the heart. So, and it's the beautiful, for a physician, that the very basic functions of our body, the heart rate compared to our breath, the real vital signs of our body,
Mm-hmm.
can reveal so much about the inner state, our physiology. So I'm not sure. It, as a doctor, we have so much advanced research. We have been looking into the tiniest molecules and the connections between all the chemical reactions in our body. But the simplest thing, heart rate compared to breath, can tell us so much, and that we, as individuals, can be in control of it. Just like you have the gas and brake pedal in your car.
Mm-hmm.
It's that we haven't seen that before, or the potential in it. It just shows that we kind of overlook what is close to us, what is simple, what is easy, and overestimate the value of what is complicated and difficult and expensive. Because also in the pulse cure, all the advice about how to regulate your nervous system, by moving, sleeping, breathing, resting, uh, temperature, alcohol, everything is free,
Right.
or very, very cheap, or even cheaper. It's of course cheaper to fast than to eat, or
Right.
drink water instead of alcohol, and so on. So instead, we have been focusing on expensive medicines. So instead of avoiding to get cancer, we have been focusing on the expensive medicines to cure cancer.
Yeah.
But heart rate variability and your lifestyle will affect your chances of contracting cancer, and we have not really been focusing on that. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's a human trait that we are like this. But anyway, now there's so much money in this,
Mm-hmm.
so that it's not so now that all the money is on the backside of disease, in treatment and in medicines. there is money to be made from keeping you healthy. Like the ring I saw that you have been recommending.
Mm-hmm.
That there's money to be made to give you a tool that can help you to stay healthy.
Yeah, I think when you look at the power of the industry, the medical and the pharmaceutical industries are definitely still they're still on top there. So it's always encouraging for me to learn of people in that industry that are really focusing on like true preventative care, or knowledge. So you have this in the book, and you just mentioned, so you can control, after a fashion, your stress level or your stress response. And so in some cases, is it as simple as just having the water instead of the alcohol? I mean, is it
Yeah,
that simple?
most people find out that alcohol is a worse stressor. And according to Whoop, which is a bracelet that tracks what their users do, alcohol is the worst stressor of all. And I don't think I've
Wow.
met anyone starting to track their system that has not cut down on alcohol.
It's so interesting
That
because usually people have a drink to decompress.
Yeah, I used to do it myself, and I used to do all the mistakes in my book, all of
Okay.
them. There's nothing, no advice that I'm giving there that I haven't been breaking for many years
Yeah.
earlier on. So I used to have 2 glasses of wine. I used to think it would help me wind down. We were even recommended by doctors, until maybe 10 years ago, that 2 glasses of wine for men and one for women every day was healthy, a
Hmm.
healthy habit. So I said, yes, thank you very much. Great. But when you get the trackers, you see that alcohol is the worst thing you can do for your stress levels. And I recently, just last week, I was drinking alcohol maybe for the first or second time this year.
Hmm.
4 glasses of wine just to test, because I wanted to test that if I went into the cold shower just afterwards, before I went to bed, I
Yeah.
wanted to see if there would be a good effect from that.
Oh, like an
Unfortunately, it
interaction
wasn't.
between the cold and the alcohol.
Yeah, to see if this cold could mitigate the stress and dampen the
Hmm.
inflammation from the alcohol.
Okay.
But at least it didn't work as well as I hoped for.
Okay.
But anyway, then I could, and for 4 days afterwards, the recovery would be worse. So
Wow.
it's not just a day after, but in 4 days afterwards. And so for the days afterwards, suddenly I get this feeling that I used to have of being tired in the morning, like already before you do something, you're already
Okay.
tired.
Yeah.
Feeling that I hadn't had for years since I was drinking, and then also that I would be tired in the afternoon and wanting to sleep and not being able to muster energy to more than watching a Netflix series or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this was something that I normally don't experience, since I changed my lifestyle.
Okay.
So it's almost also good to get this reminder. Okay, it was like this, I had forgotten about it. So
Yeah.
the effect is still there. Yeah.
That's really interesting, and that applies to foods you eat too. So, and that's
Yeah, absolutely.
would that be, I guess, to a lesser degree then, because you said alcohol is kind of the worst offender, but you can eat something and it can leave a lingering impact on your what, energy and recovery.
Absolutely. And most people also will find that they will not eat close to bedtime.
Yeah.
So two things. I think 90% of the ones that I'm in contact with will cut down on late night meals and cut down on alcohol. They will cut down on certain foods like pizzas. That's a lot of stress. And junk food like McDonald's and Burger King and such food will also create a lot of stress. And also, the sweets or candy and chocolate and those sort of things too.
Hmm.
A lot of people will experience stress while they were thinking that they were relaxing,
Yeah.
but
It's
their body is having such a strong reaction to it that and you will see it in the heart rate. Yeah,
it's so interesting, the things that we do for comfort, which are actually counterproductive, right? Like, and I'm very focused on sleep with a lot of my clients. Just using sleep as kind of a metric to judge their wellness, because you can almost backtrack from sleep to correct people's life habits. So, and it's some very similar things, right? don't drink alcohol close to bedtime. I mean, don't drink alcohol at all, but especially not close to bedtime. Don't have that glass of wine to wind down. Don't eat close to bedtime. Screen time. If you're blasting your eyeballs with blue light before bed, then it's going to be counterproductive. So I've been very focused on using a sleep tracker to understand certain degrees of wellness. So I have not yet begun working on using my own HRV to start to explore this, but I'm really interested too, particularly with the foods that I eat, because there are some, I have comfort foods, right? Last night I had a Korean tofu stew that I love, but it's very spicy, it's very salty. And so now I'm just kind of curious, like, what is this doing? Maybe I don't want to know, but I kind of do.
Yeah. In my experience, that would or could give a lot of stress. In me, actually, curry, even though it's spicy, is not so triggering. But chili, even though it could be less spicy, is triggering so much throughout the night. And very salty food also would also trigger my stress levels, almost as much as if I'm drinking alcohol. And of course, that's quite annoying if you have a busy day and you have been eating something like that. And well, I'm getting better at it, but it's probably still every other week there's some meal, particularly in the restaurant. It's very hard because they would put chili in anything without telling you, because it's not it doesn't lead to an allergic reaction. It's just a stressful reaction. And of course, the ones that don't use trackers have no idea that they're stressed by it, as I wasn't for most of my life. So nobody will notify you, and they put it to put some spice on everything.
Yeah. All right. Now I'm curious. So I have my ring here. This is the Ring-Con ring. It's very similar to the Aura ring for people that are familiar with that. And it does tell me my HRV. I'm just curious what kind of real-time data it gives me, if anything. So HRV, here we go. And this was yesterday, maybe about 8 o'clock. So around the time that I was eating dinner, it was about 53, 51. It popped up to 64 a couple hours later. I think I was exercising.
Okay.
Low overnight, of course, because it's morning here. It's 6:30 in the morning. Down to about 37 while I'm sleeping. So I don't know what it is.
Heart rate or HRV?
HRV.
Yeah. So your HRV this night was 37?
37, between 37 and 42. Yeah.
And normally, the other nights, how much would it be?
Oh, boy, it's all over the place. So here between 1:30 and 2 in the morning, it's between 47 and 78.
Yeah.
45, 71, 30, 69, 45, 80, 41, 88.
But it doesn't tell the average, just upper and lower limit?
Average, so it gives me an average for the whole day. But not
for the night.
Not for specific blocks of time.
All right.
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out how usable is this data. Like my average yesterday was 51. My range was 18 to 88.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish that I could share this with you, but yeah, it really just gives me ranges. It doesn't give me like very specific averages. So,
but you could see from the range that you had a higher level, at least some of the other nights that you were telling about there.
Yeah, if I look at the upper end, I mean, yeah, at midnight last night when I was asleep, the upper end of that was 75.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll have to do some comparative study on that.
Yeah.
So is it better then if your device gives you very specific averages for like an average for specific time frames?
Yeah. What the Garmin would do is that you would have a graph from 24 hours, and it would be blue in the parasympathetic mode, the restful mode, and it would be orange and more intensely orange in the stressful sympathetic mode. So you'd be able to see very clearly the amount of stress
at a glance
throughout the day and night, and you would get an average heart rate variability overnight.
If you're sick of slow recovery and constant fatigue dragging you down, it is time to revolutionize your routine with cold plunging from The Cold Life. I know it seems like a fad, but this isn't just a trend. Cold plunging is backed by science, offering a wide range of benefits that can elevate your physical and mental well-being. Cold plunging has been scientifically proven to slash muscle inflammation, helping your body to recover faster after intense workouts. The cold temperatures cause blood vessels to constrict, reducing swelling and flushing out toxins. And when you step out of the cold plunge, your blood vessels dilate, allowing a fresh flow of oxygen-rich blood to rush to your muscles, promoting healing and reducing soreness. Boosting circulation is another key benefit of cold plunging. Regular exposure to cold water stimulates blood flow, improving cardiovascular health, and ensuring that your body's tissues receive the nutrients they need. Enhanced circulation also contributed to better skin tone and a better, healthier, more radiant complexion. And let's not forget the surge of energy and mental clarity it brings. The rush of endorphins and adrenaline you get from cold plunging can leave you feeling invigorated and mentally sharp. It's an excellent way to jumpstart your day or recharge after a long, tiring one. Cold plunging has also been linked to reduced levels of stress and anxiety, as the practice helps regulate your body's stress response and improves your overall mood. After nearly a year of researching which cold plunge to buy, I settled on the Cold Life. Their barrel design is both functional and space efficient. It fits seamlessly into my home setup. It works indoors, it works outdoors. It's built to last with high quality materials right here in the USA. The chiller also has a killer filtration system which not only filters the water but sterilizes it using ultraviolet disinfection technology. So visit primalwellnesscoaching.com/thecoldlife, primalwellnesscoaching.com/thecoldlife, and use code PRIMAL for $250 off your purchase. Experience the cold plunge difference today and discover the myriad of benefits that come with this powerful wellness practice. Your body and mind will thank you.
Yeah.
So when I was eating a lot of, we had a low-key party here the other day with a lot of chocolate, biscuits, cakes, and so on. And my HRV overnight was like 34. And yesterday, after an evening at the ER, where I don't eat anything after 6 p.m., my HRV overnight is 46. So, which is quite a 25% difference.
Yeah.
Just because of the food I was eating. So, and I will feel that. In the morning, you will start your day kind of on the back foot, so not really feeling as strong. So for me it's very useful information.
And out of curiosity, so I can't imagine that this, well, I don't know, does your ability to help people to understand and use this data, does this cross over into your work as a doctor?
Not so much, because as a doctor I do what I'm expected to do. To give them the pill that they came to get. And only occasionally I will sense that here's a person, with a smartwatch, or that gives some impression that they want to be in charge themselves.
Okay.
Most patients come to me because they want me to fix them.
Right.
And probably one of the rarest questions I would get in the doctor's office is, what can I do for my own health? I'll jump back in my chair if I hear that.
Yeah.
So the ones who think that way will already have fixed it, so that they don't come to me. So the ones who come to me, they will be of the kind, normally that wants me to fix it and don't want much responsibility for their health.
Yeah.
Actually, sometimes if you even just mention that they could have some, what their experience of diseases and symptoms could have something to do with their lifestyle, they will get annoyed. They would get angry with me. So
Yeah.
they don't want to hear that. So that is also part of why I've been writing the books, to communicate to people through the books instead of person to person.
Yeah.
And then to try to aim it for the ones who want to change, instead of trying to get people to change, that often don't want to change. So
Right. Yeah, on a much smaller scale, I've experienced that in my own pursuit of wellness coaching, because I every day I find opportunities for the people around me to do things to improve their lives, but if they're not in a mental place to want to hear that, then it's not well received. So,
yeah.
Kind of similarly, I mostly just back off from advice unless someone specifically is soliciting advice.
Yeah. Yeah, which is it's not good, because probably 70% of the population would really benefit from getting advice and trying it, testing it out, but they won't. So
Yeah. And you've got a lot of testimonials here in your book about the successes that people had. Do you have any particular stories that stand out to you as just being like, I don't know, very uniquely special, or where it was really high impact for someone to be able to use this data to control their own wellness?
Yeah, there has been some interesting things. For example, I see that quite a lot of introverts have been thinking that they're better off being alone than with people. And they can see from their watches that it's the opposite, that they will be
Really?
more stressed alone than with people.
Wow.
And then suddenly they think that, okay, maybe this is not too bad for me. The stress was in their head
Mm-hmm.
more, mentally, than in their physiology. And then they would switch that and be more at ease with people, when they could see from their watches, and became more social, spending more time with others, because we're made to be together. Even introverts
Yeah.
will benefit, because our nervous system will react in a non-verbal way, a non-intellectual way.
Yeah.
It's just good to be with people, and we will respond negatively when we're too much alone. Uh, so interesting to see these things that they didn't expect. It's interesting to see that people, may find that when they're singing and playing guitar, they're more calm than they're sleeping. So they may identify surprising things that calms them down,
Hmm.
and stresses them as well. So I think that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. That is very interesting. Now I'm very curious to look at this when I'm pursuing various hobbies of mine. I like I mentioned earlier, I love motorcycle riding. Motorcycle riding for me is a de-stressor, but I'm kind of curious to see what does the data show.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to become a surfer. I am not. I wouldn't claim to be a surfer at this point. I've been out a number of times, but have no skill at this point. So I kind of have
And it's probably good to be out in the sun.
yeah.
So just being out there in the sun, in contact with water and nature, using your coordination and your body as it's made for, it's probably a good thing, that you would be able to see in your results.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Like the fact that I'm so terrible at surfing, mostly it doesn't frustrate me because I'm very open to being bad at things. But sometimes I'm like, oh, I really wanted to get that wave. But to your point, I'm out there, I'm floating on a surfboard in the ocean. Usually it's sunrise. There's dolphins jumping out of the water. There's birds flying around. I can watch the sunrise. So like there's all of these different things blasting peace upon me at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, and we can see from the wearables that sunshine is good. So I can see, particularly in Norway, at the close to the Arctic Circle, that when people go for a holiday for a couple of weeks down to Italy or Spain or to more sunnier places, that we can see it in the heart rate variability. It gets a lot better not just a little bit better as you would expect, from being on a holiday, but much more. So getting enough sun exposure would be quite important. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so interesting. So obviously you wrote the book. You've done a number of podcasts. You sounds like you do lectures and things like that. Do you do like one-on-one consultation with folks on this, or is this more of like you're giving it to the general population?
Giving it to the general population. I don't think it would be time even for me to find that. So I try to make systems, and we are just now making a website, a social website called thepulsecure.com, because I think that what we need to do in the future is that people help people. That there's certainly not, sustainable to have one person teaching one other person.
Yeah.
You need, and maybe not even one person teaching 200 person. Maybe you need 1,000 people teaching 1,000 people. And now, as the knowledge of health is democratized, because what we learned in medical school is quite complex. To understand disease and see the mechanism and decide which medicine, that is very complex.
Yeah.
You really need to study for 6 years. But to know what you need to stay healthy, you need to study for 6 days. It's not hard. It's
Right.
easy. Sleep, move, eat the right thing, drop alcohol.
Right.
Be good at stress management with breath work and cold exposure and calming yourself down. And these are the things that can keep you healthy. And people would be able to help each other, because they would be able to see that, okay, you can put a screenshot of a curve or the numbers that you get from your wearables, share on this thepulsecure.com, and then people would help you because they may have experienced the same things and give you advice. So that is what I'm trying to do, to create arenas where people can help people.
Yeah.
And of course that there would be lectures and courses and such to learn, but that we can also help each other. I think that's the most important thing.
Have you done much experimentation with looking at different types of data and seeing how they compare with the same types of stressors? For example, like right now, here it's very popular for people to use continuous glucose monitors to look at their blood sugar and see how different things in their life, sleep, exercise, different foods would impact that, and then how that impacts their wellness.
Yeah, I've been using that quite a lot, or at least I've been using it for maybe 4 or 5 months,
Okay.
spread out the last 3 years. And that's very useful because diabetes and insulin resistance is such a huge problem, particularly, of course, in the States, but also anywhere. And getting a better control of your blood sugar and metabolism is the key to great health. And what becomes interesting also when you use the CGM is that you can see that it doesn't just it's not just your food that will affect your levels, it's your stress levels. If I have been having a poor night's sleep, the exact same meal will spike a much higher blood sugar than another day. And just being stressed, like if I go out into a cold plunge and into the sauna, the blood sugar will go up and down, even if I'm fasting.
Yeah.
And so on. And of course you will identify foods that, eating brownies or eating certain foods that just spikes it just so high that you lose your appetite. You don't want to eat it again when you see the blood sugar spikes and what it affects your body. Because just like we're not equipped to sense our own system stress wise, we're not really sensing our blood sugar either. So we can sense, that we're coming down with a cold, or that we have eaten something that we, feel nauseous. But if we are eating something with a high blood sugar level, there's no alarm signal in our bodies. It has never been necessary because we haven't had the access to such fast carbs to trigger the blood sugar so much. So I can have like a blood sugar level of 16 and not really feel it.
Yeah.
But when you see it, and then you stay away from, particularly from drinking carbs. So
Okay.
drinking carbs
Yeah.
in juices or sodas or anything of that is terrible.
Yeah. Have
And
you?
the worst part is the dip. So because that is what you feel. So
Mhm.
you may feel a quite okay rush, while the blood sugar goes up. But then when it comes down again, because the insulin kind of overshoots and it triggers a low blood sugar, hypoglycemia, and that is when you feel bad, and that is
Right.
when you think that, okay, I need some more sugar, and then you have this roller coaster
Yeah.
going.
I'm crashing. Let me grab another sugary beverage.
Yeah.
Have you? Are there unique ways to use the two data points, HRV and then the continuous glucose monitoring, like in tandem? I know it's different data, but it seems like there's some crossover in what you're looking at.
I think there's some crossover, but I think it's more not so necessarily combined just to the blood sugar level in itself. It seems to be more connected to ultra processed food.
Okay.
So it's more that you're eating something that triggers your blood sugar, but that is also ultra processed with lots of emulsifiers and enhancers and what have you,
Yeah.
that your immune system and your gut will not respond well to, and it will create an inflammation in your body,
Yeah.
and create stress. So I haven't seen really that the blood sugar isolated in itself, like from a beverage, would
Yeah.
necessarily trigger the stress levels.
Okay.
But that
Interesting.
would probably depend, from person to person also. So.
Sure. And there's a company that I use called Viome that does they take some basic labs, they do a blood, saliva, and stool, and they give you certain health scores on different aspects of your health, and then they use that to tell you like what your superfoods are, foods that you should, maybe aren't superfoods but they're good for you, foods that you should minimize, and then foods that you should avoid entirely. So now I'm very curious to kind of measure some of that against like the HRV data. Like, I
Yeah.
kind of get this and I trust it. I say, okay, yeah, this one's obvious. This one doesn't make me feel good. These ones I've never noticed anything. Like it tells me not to eat egg yolks. I love egg yolks. Like it's a great multivitamin. I love egg yolks.
Yeah,
Now
and
I'm
it's
curious.
also healthy from vagus nerve perspective, because the egg yolk contains a lot of choline, which is important for acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter for the vagus nerve.
Mm-hmm.
So if one can tolerate it, it's a great food. Eggs are great food. So
Yeah.
it's been a huge mistake from the medical community to warn against eating eggs. For all these years.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything you can do to get that vagus nerve, functioning in your favor is a good thing. So yeah, now I'm curious to try some of these don't eat foods and see what that looks like. But
Yeah. And to people, if they experience that they get a lot of stress from food in general, compared to their fasting level, then I usually recommend them to take a food intolerance test to find out if there's something, because that may be very complicated. They may react to like 3 or 4 or 5 different foods
yeah,
that you may never be able to do that work yourself. You just
right.
see that you're responding to something, and yeah.
So if you're going from I assume being in a fasted state has some impact on HRV, would it?
Absolutely. So that is what a lot of people find, that what they would expect, is to be stressed because they feel hungry.
Yeah.
On the device, they will see that they are calm and in the parasympathetic mode. So
That's so
it's
interesting.
no wonder that is, in most religions, fasting is a part of what they do.
Yeah.
So silence, being thankful, praying for what they want, going on pilgrimages, fasting, so many of these things, having a day off, So there's so many things in religions in general that is healthy, like
Yeah.
fasting.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Yeah, so I'm just curious. So, okay. So if being in a fasted state actually would show favorable results with HRV, then if you're introducing different foods from a fasted state, you can really tell that specific food how you're reacting to that specific food.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. My first surprise when it comes to food was I was eating 2 large slices of cakes, like a normal birthday cake. And it was at lunchtime where I was working as a doctor. And of course, I have the same job before and after lunch. And after lunch, my stress levels went through the roof. And the only thing I had done different was eating these 2 large slices of cake. And I had never even thought that food could be stressful.
Mm.
It was just a concept that was new to me.
Yeah.
And but it became obvious. And then after a while, I did the lab test, and it could show that I have some intolerance to gluten and milk.
Okay.
Milk proteins or casein.
Yeah.
So that would explain that my reaction to those kind of meals is stronger. At least now I know that. And here the other day I was at a party, a 50th birthday party at a friend, and had like 4 huge slices of cake
4
at 11 p.m. Yeah,
4
and the
slices of
sleep
cake.
was I keep testing.
For science. It's for science. This cake is for science.
That's for science. Yeah. It was terrible sleep. So then I was waking up because the Garmin watch has a body battery system that in the book I recommend that you should, most of the days you should have 80, it goes to 100.
Yeah.
80 in body battery in the morning most days. That's what I can see is healthy for most people. And that day, the day after, I had like 34. So I'm already starting it close to what I should ending my day with.
Yeah.
So you get this insight. It's like having a speedometer for your physiology, that you suddenly see your intensity. You see how much is left on the gas tank. You see your fuel consumption in the moment, and you're able to regulate the speed. So at least you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So you can make some informed choices rather than be totally blind as to what is affecting your body.
Yeah. It's very interesting. But yeah, I would guess that kind of like you did with the cake, for example. I mean, it would be very easy to just say, okay, cake is bad. Cake makes, has a negative impact on my HRV and my wellness. But then you took it a step further and you actually did the blood work and discovered that it's the casein and the gluten. Yeah. So there's opportunity one to like look at, okay, does a food that's comprised of other foods do this? Okay. So, like we can just say don't eat cake, but then it really is helpful to break it down to single ingredients, it seems like. So you would probably be able to tell the same thing drinking a glass of milk, or not that anyone just eats gluten, but eating something that maybe has less ingredients and is primarily a gluten-based food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was also eating some kind of porridge with milk and rice that you would think is almost already digested, as it gets into the stomach. And it would create so much stress. It would, raise my heart rate with like 15 from 60 to 75. So yeah, you get a lot of these surprises once you start checking what your meals affect your stress levels. And I think even most nutritionists are not aware of this. I know a lot of nutritionists. No. And I even mailed them and showed them the graphs, I think early on when I started finding out these things. And they weren't even curious. So they're probably just like doctors. So when doctors get to know that their patient did something to get rid of symptoms that they were not supposed to get rid of, everybody can tell that the doctor wasn't really curious about what happened. So it's probably the same with nutritionists. It's some kind of arrogance and ignorance that is it's just I don't. It probably goes with the education. I'm not sure where it comes from, but it seems to be the same everywhere I go.
Yeah, I was going to say if it's outside the scope of the formal education, then maybe it's not interesting, or it's not felt to have the industry backing that warrants using that type of information. Yeah, I don't know, but I love being curious, and I love when other people are curious as well, because there are so many things that you can do to like you said, manage your own health and wellness and really become your own doctor, right? You start to feel unwell. Okay, well, maybe do a bit of self-exploration and see what got you to that point.
Yeah, and so many people ask if will this not lead to more stress? But in my experience, people who are curious, it just triggers. It becomes like a game, like a gamification of their health. They see the sleep numbers. So earlier, people used to brag about how little sleep they got, and now they brag about their score.
Right.
So I got 19 sleep score. I got 8 hours, last night.
Yeah.
Instead of bragging about 4.5 or 5 or can sleep when you're dead and such things. So it's you get rewarded for doing things that are good for your health, and you can see the numbers. So it makes it so much more actionable to do these things.
I love
of course,
I love what you just said about gamifying it, right? Gamifying your own health and wellness. And that's something so I teach self-defense, and that's something that we talk about a lot in martial arts and self-defense is, just gamifying what we do to make it more fun, more interesting, and more memorable, right? People remember the fun game you played, doing some drill more than they remember like doing specific techniques. So yeah, gamifying your health tracking is a very cool concept. I actually really like that. I'm gonna have to figure out. So yeah, what the way you just described it, using HRV is a way. I'm gonna have to explore more ways to gamify this for my clients.
Yeah, and you could have a look at the pulsecure.com. There I have a 1-hour video lecture where you can see what I do, like comparing the fasting state to a Christmas dinner, and you can see how does a cold plunge affect it versus sauna, and different things. So and alcohol, how does that look on the graphs? So it's
now I'm curious because I do a cold plunge. I have a cold plunge here, and I use it just about every day. And as I'm preparing to get into the cold plunge, I feel very stressed. I don't ever want to get in there, but I do want to get in there because I know that it's good for me, and I feel good afterwards. My heart's going. I do breath work while I'm in there, and my heart rate jacks up, and then I kind of bring it back down through breath work. But I'm kind of curious to see like what that post cold plunge HRV looks like now.
Yeah, because I can clearly see on the Garmin watch where you can then see on your ring. You may not see the result. You'll only see it. Maybe it depends on the Aura ring. You would probably just see it in the HRV overnight. But on the Garmin watch, you would see the result there and then, the next 1 or 2 or 3 hours. You can see the levels. You can always push a button and see the stress level. So right now my stress level is 44.
Okay.
So it's kind of you can just push a button and you see your speed in the moment. So.
That's so cool. I had a friend that offered me his prior generation Garmin watch that I might have to just take him up on if he still has it. I'm like, I don't wear watches, but now I'm very curious. How does the Apple Watch compare as far as the data it gives?
Unfortunately, not as good.
Okay.
But there is one app that is okay. It's called Athletic. That will give you some value, but for some reason Apple is not really good at this.
Okay.
So hopefully they will improve.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Got it. Yeah, I know for the smart wearables, that's the one that I see on most people is the Apple Watch.
Yeah. Now Garmin is by far the best.
Okay.
But also Samsung seems to be able to pick up the competition, and they also released the Samsung Galaxy Ring, probably
Oh,
to
really?
compete with Aura. I was running New York Marathon a month ago, a month and a half, and then I saw Aura ring commercials everywhere,
No
like on
kidding.
Times Square and all around New
Wow.
York.
Blowing up.
It's building up to a war of the rings.
Yeah. Okay.
Samsung seems to be more active in trying to get into this market.
Cool. Yeah, I'm very curious. So the ring con that I wear is the fourth smart ring that I tried. So this is the one that I kind of settled on. So I tried Aura. I like Aura. I just don't like the subscription. I tried a now defunct one called Motive, and I tried a new one called Circular, which I really like the metrics they give, but I felt the ring itself was very uncomfortable. So so this is what I settled on. But yeah, I'm always curious to find new ones. So I had no idea Samsung was making one.
Yeah.
So is the pulsecure.com it's active now, so people can go on there and check it out.
Yeah, it should be active now. Yeah.
Okay.
So at least in the very near future. So we're building it. So people would have to see that we're coming into a building site, and we're the first one there.
Okay.
But there will be exciting things happening. So
right on. Well, cool. Well, I'm going to link to that in the show notes. So the show notes for this episode will be at thesuperhumanblueprintpodcast.com. I will link to the pulsecure.com. I will link to your book so people can pick up your book and anything else that you want me to share.
it's also an Audible. So many podcast listeners would like to listen to the book while they're working out or commuting or whatever. So it's also an Audible and an ebook. So,
Perfect.
And it's available then on Amazon, probably Barnes and Noble, and wherever you get books online.
Yeah, I might have to go pick up the Audible version for my second go, because it takes me a really long time to get through a paper book, because I have a hard time making time to sit and read. Whereas, like you said, I walk a lot. I go for a lot of walks, and I love listening to audiobooks when I walk.
Yeah. It's like, I think the audiobook is around 6 or 7 hours, and in those 6 and 7 hours, you would probably know more about preventative health than your doctor. Yeah. So it can be useful.
That is a profound statement, and kind of sad, but also kind of cool, because you can take control of your own health. You can read a book, and you can use a device that you probably already have, and you can just change the trajectory of your own health. So
yeah, be in charge, take the responsibility, and get those extra years. And as a doctor, the reason why I made all the mistakes was that we didn't think it mattered so much. We thought that having a good lifestyle would probably get you like 3 or 4 extra years, but that would take you 3 or 4 years of work to do that, sleeping more, exercising, making food from the bottom, and so on. But now we see that you can get like 20 or 24 extra years if you do the things right. So it's a whole other numbers involved here. So that is my experience as well, that if you do, because I pay attention to the ones who get into their 90s and are still vital, and I can see that they will have followed the strategies in the Pulse Cure. And if you have done the same things wrong, like I was almost on my way of doing, you'll be a bit lucky to get into your 70s and still keep your health. So so I can see that from a clinical standpoint as well, not only in the research, but also it's what I can see with my own eyes.
Yeah, well, then you have a breadth of experience, and you've seen a lot of probably illness, and a lot of just people out there, and on all the work that you've done. So it's beneficial to all that you've approached that with an open mind.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, it has been lovely talking to you. I have learned a lot. I have also learned that maybe I need to go get that Garmin smartwatch, because being able to just tap it and see your HRV is pretty cool. And yeah, I'm gonna see what I can learn. I'm gonna do a little bit of kind of cross comparing HRV versus some of these foods that supposedly are not good or are good for me. And I might check in with you on that because, it might be interesting.
Yeah. It would be cool to do another episode once you have some data and experience with it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Torkil, thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I suspect our listeners have learned something completely new, and then hopefully we'll get a few of them on this to start taking their own health under even greater control.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on your show. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure. Take care.